in this session, mainly we'll be like looking into two parts. One, there will be a small presentation about like a little bit of brief into Azure virtual machines, and then we will have a small demo into how we'll be like configuring and everything on virtual machines. Yeah, so in today's agenda, we will be talking about virtual machines, like machines in general, and then like why are we using these virtual machines? Like what's the purpose towards it? And then we will see how virtual machines are used in cloud computing. So we'll be focusing on Azure over here. And then we will be seeing a few things on the infrastructure as service and how VMs are being used in that, and the service architecture of the virtual machines for Asia. And we'll be covering a little bit of the key features when it comes to the Asia Cloud for VM. Also, we'll be looking into some other areas like scale set to like it's like how the load balanced VMs are being used, and we'll also be looking into availability and availability zones. So these are like how like frequently the VMs are being available to us in the specific region. And finally, we'll be going through a few scenarios and we'll be doing some discussions over there. Yeah. So jumping into it. So first we'll be seeing about virtual machines. So virtual machines is mostly known as a virtualization. So this is a emulation of computer systems. The main thing is that it's not bound to any specific hardware, and they provide the functionality similar to a physical system. So that's what mainly the virtual machine uh, takes part in. And as you can see in this diagram, so we have the underlying hardware, so we have the infrastructure, and then we have this other part called as a hypervisor. So this hypervisor is one of the programs which is responsible for managing these VMs, right? So they basically provide an abstraction level between the OS and the hardware. So it's basically not bound to any specific hardware, and um, they control the VMs running from the infrastructure, right? So in every layer you can see we have a guest operating system, and then there is an app. So it depends on how many virtual machines we can have in a hypervisor. So this concept is overall known as the virtualization. And next we'll be seeing like what's so crazy about the virtual machines, right? So virtual machines provides us this abstract control over hardware. So that's one of the main key points. And we have total control over the operating system. So we can use whatever the operating system we want in a VM. And we can also use it for other custom hosting configurations. And we can mainly run any custom software when it comes to a virtual machine. So it's not bound to any specific OS limitation. Right. So since we kind of have an understanding about VMs now in general, so we will be going a little bit into understanding about Azure virtual machines. So this is the similar thing, but where the virtual machines are mainly hosted in the cloud area. So some of the things that Azure provides is where it around so sorry it allows like data centers around the globe, and every server includes a hypervisor when it comes to the VM. And as you can see this diagram, right? So this is the Asia portal, and we have an API call where we use the orchestrator to communicate between the fabric controller. So this fabric controller is handled using a switch, and this fabric controller further communicates between the underlying server, right? So this is where the different levels of servers get connected and the VM service are being provided to us. So servers are basically connected as switches, and also we can to get the uh, operating system, we can get those using the VM images, which is provided in the marketplace. And going forward, Azure VM also, like, why mainly Azure VM? So if that comes as a question, so we have like few reasons why we'll be using Azure VM. So the main factors are like it provides agility and scalability. So we can like expand the number of resources and the services that we are using for the VM, and we can easily use it as a test development environment. And when it comes to the payment option, we have the pay as you go option. So you can only pay for whatever you consume. And they also have extended data centers. So we can take use of their vast resources. Apart from that, they also provide like disaster recovery. So let's say in a specific region, the VM is gone down. So if you have auto configured for the disaster recovery in another region, you can use your image over there and also get those services for the VM from that. And also they provide hosting services. So this is going to be like a small like infrastructure as a service. So how VMs are being used in this infrastructure as a service. So when we see on premise, we have on premise is more like where we use it in the private cloud itself. So this is where you can see like where you what we manage and what the cloud provider manages. So in on-premise, the virtual machine is handled by us, but in a infrastructure as a service, also it's being used by us. But further going, we can see that the cloud provider itself handles the virtual machine. So this is a similar way where virtual machines are being used when it comes to infrastructure as a service. This is just like an understanding for us, like how VMs are being used when it comes to the Azure platform. And further going into the architecture. So this is the virtual machine service architecture. So over here, we will be like talking about the high level components of the resources that will be generated when we create a VM in Azure Cloud. So the first thing that we have over here is the virtual machine itself. So this will be mainly the logical management resource, and it controls everything in the VM. So we can scale up, scale down the VM, and we can also add and remove disks as we please. And also in addition, we can configure extensions. So this is the main point for the virtual machine. And then with that is something that we get over here is the OS disk. So once we create a VM, we also get the OS disk. So the OS disk is usually used for the system installation. So this is where the operating system is being installed, the guest operating system, and then it also contains the boot volume. And with it along, we also get the temporary disk. So the temporary disk is part of like when we create the VM itself, we receive this temporary disk. So it's a short-term memory for application data, but it's recommended like not to use no, not to save any data over here because this data can be lost when there's any maintenance that's being done. So it's always recommended not to save any data over here. And this is mainly like it comes as SSD storage usually nowadays. But you can also configure it into like a HDD or another kind of a type for the hard disk if you want like a little bit of cheap option. And then if we need additional storage, we can use this option called data disks. So data disks can be configured. It can be configured in the when creating the virtual machine itself, or you can also configure it later on the go after creating the virtual machine. So we can mount and unmount disks as we please. So it's recommended usually to use a data disk when we are saving data in a virtual machine. And then we have this other important component when it comes to the service. So this is going to be the network interface card. So the network interface card responsibility is mainly to connect the VM to the virtual network itself. And there we usually always have one network interface card for all the VM. And they have their own assigned MAC address and have its own private IP addresses for internal connections. And then we can see over here where the private IP. So this is how the internal connections are being handled, where the private IP is using the subnet. So subnet is the segment of the virtual network for providing efficient allocation of IP addresses. And so it also uses the private IP to communicate through the subnet, right? And um, so the subnets also plays the part of the virtual network mainly. And we can see over here how the virtual network is being entirely handled. So how the network building block for the virtual network, we can see the main address, and then we have the broken down addresses from the subnet to the private IP. And then the other part over here is the network security group. So this component is mainly responsible for handling all the traffic. So they usually handle all the inbound and outbound traffic. So any traffic that comes from like anyone wants to access the virtual machine, so that goes as an inbound traffic. And anything where the VM tries to like allocate or like requires a resource, then it will be going as an outbound traffic. So that part is entirely being handled using this network security group. And then we have the public IP. So the public IP is what we will be using to access the virtual machine usually. So we usually get a static IP, but we can also configure it to be dynamic as we please over there. And in addition, we also receive this diagnostic storage option. So uh, it's basically more like to get information about boot diagnostic logs. So if there's any boot error in the OS, or if there's any um, diagnostic errors, we can use this storage diagnostic storage account to get more information about the virtual machine. Yeah, so that will be like an overall look into the virtual machine service. So this service architecture. So we will be looking more into this when we go through the demo. So it will be like a little bit more clear when we talk about in the demo. So these are some of the key features that Azure VM provides. So one of those is like it supports both Windows and Linux environments. It's not only that, it provides other kinds of OS support too. And it has this extension option where you can use it for automations. And then also it's easier to grab any image from the marketplace. And another thing is the high availability option that it provides. So uh, we can configure the VM to either be high available, or whether to be like a memory specific kind of a VM, or whatever it is, or a GPU kind of optimized VM. And we also can use it for like monitoring facilities mainly, like if we need to like monitor any system, so we can use the VM to handle this data. And then we have these other concepts of scale sets of how load balanced VMs are being used across the resources, and how availability sets and zones are being used. So those are like some of the features that comes with VM itself. Yeah, so we'll be going a little bit into scale sets, availability sets, and availability zones in the upcoming slide. So you guys will be getting a little bit of more understanding there. Yeah, so scale set. So scale set is simply where using it's a basically a feature for VM to allow higher scale computing. So this where one image is being used across multiple virtual machines, and a load balancer is being used to guide the user into the specific virtual machine, right? So we have over here like identical VMs, uh, where these are like the scale sets are groups of it created from the same VM image, and the load balancer mainly handles the traffic of the user, right? So this is how the scale set option works, and we also have this concept of availability sets. So in availability sets, what happens is it's mainly to provide high availability and less redundancy for the system. So if you are giving an availability set, you can like it will automatically configure the fault domain and update domains for you. So fault domains more like sharing the common power source and network switches. So uh, and it's basically like if there's any issue with the virtual machine, it will try to go to one of these fault domains and auto resolve it, and try to keep the VM up for you to use it. And also the update domain will be responsible in like with regular updates and all of that related to the VM. So this will automatically be handled in the availability sets for the VM. And for multi-tier applications, there are separate layer in every availability sets. So this would be the other part, which is the availability zones. So availability zones are mostly to protect a virtual machine from like sent outages. So like if there's any disaster issues, so we can use these availability zones. And usually in every region, we have like at least three zones. So they have their own cooling power networking for every region. So we can also configure the availability zone when we are creating a virtual machine itself. So that will be more like I think it will be more clear when we go through the demo, so you all can like get more understanding into it. So these are like a few of the scenarios and discussions when it comes to the VM. So VMs are mainly used in on-premise gateway services. So it's used to secure data between on-premise data, which isn't in the cloud, and also one of these other services known as Bayesian host. So which is which is used as a service uh, to securely connect using the RDP without using any public IP options. And we also have the high performance computing option when it comes to a VM. So where we can like switch between what kind of a VM we need. So that's also an option which why people mainly use Azure VM. And we can also use it for batch jobs. So like you need like if you there's some nightly batch jobs that we need to run in our for like specific server configuration or something. And there are also other options like cluster solutions. And there's this lift and shift scenarios. So it's one of the rehosting migration strategy, which is to moving data from on premises to cloud itself. And also if we need other services that are unavailable in Asia, so we can use the VM for that. So these are like one of the other reasons where VMs are being used. Yeah, so this will be like the overall like not everything, but like a very brief scenario where VMs are being handled and used. So let's jump into the demo. So in the demo, we will be going through few areas. So first we will go through the Asia platform. We'll see how the Asia platform is used, and we will be creating one of the virtual machines. And then we will be connecting the created virtual machine using the remote desktop. And we will also create a virtual machine using a command line interface. So we'll be using PowerShell for that. And we'll try to configure an extension. and we'll be managing some network service groups, and we'll be also managing disks. So that will be our demo. So I have recorded the demo, but I will be walking through the demo with you all when the video is going on. Yeah, so this would be the Asia portal. So you can either go in that hamburger menu and select virtual machine. So search virtual machines from the search bar, and this is where it will guide you to. So you can create an Asia virtual machine, or you can also use the preset configuration option. And there are these new things where you can use the Asia Arc virtual machine and other options, but we will be going ahead with the normal Asia virtual machine creating. So once you click create, we'll be going to this page. So this will be like the project details. Usually you will have a subscription. Otherwise, you will have to create a subscription. And I'll be creating a resource group over here. So if you can use an existing resource group, or if you don't have an existing one, you can create a new resource group. And this will be the virtual machine's name. So the name needs to be specific to their uh, standard. So in case if you have an issue, they will be getting an error for that. I'll be creating it in Southeast Asia. So you can see there's the like they also provide like details on like if you have like unclear areas about what's happening in, you can like go to the icon and see more info. So in the availability zones, like there are like they have like different availability zones. Um, but I will not be selecting an availability zone. And the security type. So since it's a demo, again, I will not be selecting a security. So this is the image market. So you can like uh, like browse like various images. Um, for the demo, I'll be using the Windows Server image. And like we also have this new thing of a VM architecture. So it can like you can select either you need an ARM or 64, but some of the images don't provide ARM by default. So like it doesn't provide ARM, so you can, it will automatically select for 64. So this spot discount is another option where you can like allocate spot resources, which is a bit cheaper, but they are not highly available. So it's, I mean, we are not taking that. So when we go for the sizes, we can see like there are different like kind of options over here, like the D2, the memory, and like how much of cost it's being used. So we can, you can go to the see all sizes and select whatever you need over there. And then we'll be going ahead with the username and the password for the VM. So this will be the inbound rule. So in order to access the VM, we need to provide an inbound rule. So we will be giving the RDP, the remote desktop 3389 port. We'll be allowing it. Otherwise, we won't be able to access the VM using the remote desktop. You can basically over here you can create it over here itself without going ahead within the next tabs like disks, networking, and all. But it's always better to go through, like if you need specific configurations for this, you can go through each option. So this is the OS disk that we'll be using. So here you can either select premium kind of SSD, or you need a standard SSD, or like how high available you need it to be. You can select over there, and you can also specify whether you need to delete the VM, sorry, delete the OS disk with the VM itself. And the key management is mainly handled by Asia itself, so that is the option over there. That's to create a new disk. So if you want, you can add disks, but for now we won't be adding any disk. We will be doing that uh, later on the demo. So this will be the networking section. So you can see how the virtual, the VNet, uh, this how the subnets and IPs have been defined, and the allowed ports for now is again only the RDP. And also there's this option for the load balancing. So if you need, you can provide with load balancing features over there. And this management is where you can like log in using identity like Asia AD and other stuff. Uh, but yeah, it's again based on your uh, requirement, or you can later reconfigure it you in the VM portal itself. So this is another feature where it provides, you can use auto shutdown option. So you can tell on a specific time where the VM needs to turn off, so the resources aren't being used. So which means you'll be getting a little bit of a less price for the VM. And there's backup options and recovery. So you can say where in which region you want the recovery to be. So this is the diagnostics. So we'll be enabling the boot diagnostics error logs. So it will be saved in the storage account. And then we'll be finally going to the review and create page, and we can over here we can already see how much the cost we is being utilized for this. So for the D2 V3 we are being used 0.2170 USD per hour. If you want, you can also use the pricing calculator to do the cost analysis. And we can see all the summarized view of the resources that we are going to create. So the subscriptions, the resource group, and we have the inbound ports allowed, the disks, the networking management, and so forth. This will take a little bit of time because they need to like generate all like the required resources. So once you create it, everything's if it's good, like it will start to do this deployment in progress. And it will also provide like a small summarized view of whatever the things that are being created. You can see the network security group, the IP, the VNets have been created, and the VM is still ongoing in the creation process. Yeah, so you can see that the deployment is complete now. And when we go here, but over here it gives like a little bit of a warning and says that it's not ready, right? So this is some of one of the issues that maybe you might face, like not an issue really, but once you create the VM itself, it will take a little bit of time for the VM to be up and running. Um, yeah, so like I have also like included the issues I face, so it would be more of an understanding when you all guys also like do it. Yeah, so I'm trying to go inside and see why actually what was the issue, why are we having a warning. But it doesn't provide any specific error because there's actually no problem. So going back again to the VM, like since it takes some time, so it should all be okay now. So now going back to the VM, and you can see that the VM is up and it started. So we have the public IP, the virtual network. Um, so we can directly copy this IP and itself connect through the RDP, but or you can either go to the connect option and connect through the downloaded RDP file. So you can download the RDP file here. Yeah, so I will be having a small issue where I won't be able to connect, but so I will again be trying this same thing with the public IP. So I'll be using the remote desktop connection. Then we have to provide the username that we used when configuring when creating the VM. and the password that we specified. Yeah, so we'll be getting the certificate then, and we can proceed from there. So after you do that, you will be logging into uh, the Windows server that we created just now. Again, the speed and everything depends on the kind of resources you have selected. So since I've selected like the basic, so it takes a little bit more time for them to load. Yeah, so you can see over here like the server managers, and then I'll be like ending the remote session. So as the next part, we will be going into see the resources, like what are the resources that was created. Like we went through the presentation, so we have the virtual machine and we have the public IP, uh, then the network security group that was created, and the virtual network. Then we have a network interface card and the OS disk. So this is where we can go into the VM. So this is where we handle everything. Like if you want to do any later additions to the VM, we can configure them here. So this is more like an overview of the VM that's being VM's summary. So we can see already we have the disk, but we don't have any data disk. And this is where we configure extensions. And if you want, we can later configure auto shutdown or backup options too. We can also enable insights to get more details into the VM, like the errors and all that, and also configure like health monitoring options for that later on. I'll be stopping the VM, and the next part we will be seeing of a little bit of a better application where we can use other than the RDP. So this is one of the applications called as Remote Desktop Connection Manager. So this app is better to be used because we can create multiple VM. We can run multiple VM instances inside this. So it's more like a list view where we can see all the running VMs. Because otherwise, if we use the RDP, we can only use one at a time. So I will be establishing the the VM which we created now, the connection over here in the public IP. You can give whatever the name you prefer. And the username and the password for the VM. We don't need a domain name, so we're removing that. And the other thing that we need to consider is like, since we need to make it resizable for this specific application window size, um, we'll be going to this option called remote desktop setting. So in there we can see they have this option for same as client area. So this is gonna basically scale the window size for that. Once you give that, we can see the server is disconnected for the moment, but we will be connecting it now. So our VM is getting loaded inside this now. So it's a little bit of a easier approach where we can easily access the VM. And then we will be using the Azure command line to create another resource, to basically create another VM. So we'll be seeing how what we are going to do for that. So you can either install Azure CLI for that, um, or you can use the Azure Portal's inbuilt PowerShell. So they have the guide over here, like how to install them and all that. But I will be, for the easiness, I'll be using the Cloud Shell uh, in Azure platform itself. So you can see it's already trying to authenticate to Azure. So because otherwise, if you download the Azure CLI, you will need to log in and do all those stuff by yourself. But over here, it automatically does the authentication and stuff for you. A little bit easy over here. So this will be the command I will be using to create the Azure resource group. So we'll be creating a new resource group now called as test demo 2, again in location Southeast Asia. I'm just checking whether the Azure command line is active and working. So you can see if we get this uh, info, we basically it means the Azure CLI is up. So once you do that, we can see the subscription ID and the details were fetched, and it says succeeded. So the resource group has been created now, but we have to still create the virtual machine. So this will be the command for that. So azvm create the virtual machine name, the resource group name, and we can provide the username and password. It's not recommended to provide like that, usually the password, but since it again it's a demo, just included that over here. You can use the SSH keys usually if you're using an Ubuntu kind of option. And for the image, I'm using Ubuntu server over here. So this image, like what kind of image you should use. So you can get those from you can search it from Azure, what like the latest VM image you need if you're creating from the CLI. So yeah, I'll be creating the Azure VM now. It'll take some time again to create it. Yeah, so once it's created, we can see um, that the power state of the VM is running, the private IP, the public IP, and the resource group. So basically, the VM has been created now. So we can use this SSH admin user command to log into the VM, and we can provide the public IP. So it generates a fingerprint key inside the VM itself, but it's better to later remove that. So yeah, you can see like that we have logged into the Ubuntu VM now. So that's the fingerprint key, the SSH. And we'll be logging out from the VM. So going back to the resource group, we can now see that will be having a new resource group called test demo 2. So we have the similar kind of resources over here too, but it's again a different image which we use to create this VM. You can see it's a Linux Ubuntu 18.4 image that's running in this VM and the public IP for that. Yeah, so that will be the part for the command line creating a resource. So we'll be going back again to our resource one, and we'll be seeing like how we will be handling a few extensions on the VM. So for this, I'll be using one of the basic PowerShell scripts. So what I'm saying is I need my server to display a message with the computer name. So like this is a message with the computer name. So when you go to add extensions, I'll be using the custom script extension. So we need to basically give our script file over here. So we need to create a storage account for this. So I'll be having a few issue with the name where the storage account name is already been taken. I'll be using the same resource group to create the storage account. Yeah, so the name needs to be unique. And we'll be creating the storage account. Will take some time. You can, yeah. So the storage account was created. So again, when trying to go into extensions, you can see that the account will be available. So we'll be selecting the storage account we created now. So we need to always have a container inside a storage account. So we have to create a container for that. And we basically don't need the access levels, but you can just create it from here. So after going into the test container, we can upload the file over here. So we're uploading the file. So now we'll have the file in the container and selecting it. So once we'll be creating the extension now. Takes a few minutes. Yeah, so after that, the extension was created, and now we can try to go access the public IP. So we should be getting that message because we use the PowerShell script to display a message on the server when the public IP is being accessed. But when we try to go over here, we will be getting an error. So the reason for this is because even though we had added the extension, we never configured the uh, allowing port for the inbound traffic because we are trying to access the public IP, right? But we have um, not provided any access to the port 80. So we need to then go into inbound security rules. So this way we are handling the network security group. So we need to create a new inbound rule. I'm using the port 80, and we can specify priority. So 100 is the highest priority. So for this, I'll be just giving 100, and the name for the inbound rule. Yeah, so you can see that the inbound rule was created, and now trying to access it, need to do a refresh. So yeah, using the IP again, and now we can see that we'll be getting the message. So basically the extension is working right now. We can see the test demo VM1. Yeah, and that will be the part for the adding the extension and handling the network security group. So as the final step, we'll be going to create some disks. So we have the OS disk. So can create and attach a new disk over here. A disk name, and you can select the storage type. So you can decide what kind of caching you need, the read and write. I'll be using 32 GB storage for this disk, and then we'll be applying the disk for the VM. You can see once the disk is created, it's automatically updating it to the VM. Yeah. And now when we go into the virtual machine, so even though like we can go to this um yeah, the server manager. I'll be just going to the file explorer to show you all that even though we created the disk, we don't have it available still because we didn't mount it. So we need to mount the disk to make use of it. So we only have the OS and the temporary storage. You can use this the server manager. Go to disk, and then we can see over here we have an unknown partition, 32 GB. So can create. You can use that as the new volume now. And yeah, it's basically to select the disk. Specifies the size for the volume, and you can select the letter you need. And then you can mount the volume. So yeah, after mounting the volume, you can go to the file explorer and see that we have a new volume now. So we can use that as a new disk storage. And we can also see the volumes over here. So we're disconnecting from the VM and then going back to the resource. Um, so you can now see that we also have the sample disk that we created in this resource. And it's like a little overview of the disk usage. And if you need to like increase the size, you can see the IOPS and all other details over here. Yeah, so that's basically for the disk. So from there, we can conclude the demo, and the final part will be on Asia VM pricing. So when we are going to create the when we are creating the VM, we can decide what kind of virtual machine we need, whether it's a general purpose, so whether it needs to be memory specific optimize, GPU optimize, and so forth. So we have the Asia pricing uh, page for that and the pricing calculator. So using that, we can further get more insights on what kind of a resource we really need for our use. So yeah, and that would be it. for the demo and for the presentation. And thank you all for listening.